Time I've been a political journalist at the BBC, there has been somebody there to advise, guide, and make me laugh. It is Jo Coburn, who was a political correspondent when I was like the tiniest little baby political journalist. And then she went on to be the co-presenter of Daily Politics with Andrew Neil, where I was a slightly larger political journalist as the reporter. Then I went off to Brussels and Jo Coburn started Politics Live, a whole new programme for BBC Two at lunchtimes. And a couple of weeks ago, Jo announced that she's moving on from Politics Live and she's moving on from the BBC onto pastures new. So we thought, because she's been on Newscast so many times and it's been so great to have her, we would catch up with her to get her thoughts in her last few days as a BBC political presenter. And I was joined by someone else who's been alongside me the whole time I've been here. It's Chris Mason. So here's the conversation me and Chris had with Jo as she counts down the minutes to handing in her BBC pass. Chris Mason is here. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
And we're joined by the legendary Jo Coburn from Politics Live. Hello, Jo.
Hello. I love that introduction, Adam. Legendary. Yes, I noticed one of the papers described me as that. I thought, goodness, I must leave more often.
Well, no, so you are a legend because you're leaving. So you're going to be in the BBC history now.
Thank you for reminding me.
When is your last Politics Live, by the way?
On Thursday.
At the risk of sounding sort of insular, but newscasters will be able to relate to this from their own, whatever their life experience has thrown up. Really, when you've spent as long as you have within an institution.
Yes.
The
institution being the BBC.
Yeah. How contemplating departure? It must be quite a sort of big deal. I don't know the psychology of sort of thinking, oh crikey, I'm about to leave.
No, there's a lot of psychology, Chris. You are institutionalised after 28 years in a good and probably less good way. It really is your home, your family. It is about sort of slightly blinking into the sunlight after all that time. And that makes it daunting in so many ways. And the last few weeks have sort of galloped by after all this time. So I am feeling a little bit of trepidation. To be completely honest, but I still think it's the right decision. Thank goodness, since I can't change my mind now. So yes, Thursday will be the last programme and the last day. And of course, like every institution, this isn't unique to the BBC. Of course, life sort of stops. I hand back my pass. My name will probably be erased in that sense from all the computer setup and network. And that will be that.
I had a colleague. I'll spare his blushes and won't name him. But a few years ago, who was leaving the BBC, and on his final day, he decided there was various bits and bobs that he was quite proud of that he'd done on the air that he wanted to kind of keep a recording of. So we were beavering away late at night, and I was on the late shift as a political correspondent, which finishes the wrong side of midnight. And he finished doing his bits and bobs at 10 past midnight. And couldn't get out because
you have to bleep out of our office.
Yeah, his pass had expired at the end of his final day, and we were now in the day after.
Well, that's hilarious. That is the most visible and immediate sign that it's over, and you are expected to vacate the building. The one thing I will say, that's very funny. In fact, I think I know who that person is, and I will learn the lesson and make sure I'm out by 10 to midnight.
Depends when your party finishes.
That comes even later, and not in the BBC, thank goodness, in terms of having a hard stop. But one of the things that I've realised I won't have is I don't have lots of personal possessions at my desk that I need to clear out. I've noticed a pair of shoes that were discarded under the desk. I will obviously remove those, and a pile of books and various papers. But I don't feel like I've got a whole sort of bedroom full of stuff to take.
And Jo, we'll do some proper reminiscing in a second, but I want to get our money's worth first.
Charming.
So obviously yesterday's newscast was dominated by the UK-EU negotiations. We did our big chat with Rachel Reeves. What have you picked up from the other political parties doing Politics Live yesterday and today?
About that deal?
Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, on today's programme, we did a sort of broad sweep of what the leaders were saying, and it is pretty well along Leave Remain lines, as you would expect. Kemi Badenoch and many of the Conservatives talking the language that we heard years ago of betrayal and surrender. We had Lee Anderson from Reform Party on today saying capitulation. It sort of brought me back to those Brexit years of which you were a key part, Adam Fleming, in Brussels with your big binder, I seem to remember. The Liberal Democrats, of course, thinking it's marvellous, and actually perhaps the government could have gone further when it came to the deal that was agreed by the Labour Party. And I think broadly the MPs that I've spoken to within Labour are pleased. Again, there'll be a little bit of a range of opinion in terms of some thinking perhaps we could have got even closer, and others with constituencies where they hope that things like the youth mobility scheme don't make people think of freedom of movement, and they've called it a youth, a youth experience scheme, which does make me feel it sounds like one of those gap years or, Eurostar sort of a theme park, interrailing theme park for Europe. So I don't think there was anything unexpected, if you like, in that sense, from the immediate reactions from the different parties.
And Jo, just on another subject, the welfare system and specifically the winter fuel allowance, one of the interesting things that came out of our chat with Rachel Reeves yesterday was I thought Rachel Reeves of a few months ago, when asked, are you going to change your policy on who's eligible for winter fuel to maybe expand it so that more pensioners can get it, old Rachel Reeves would have said no. Rachel Reeves of yesterday said, I am listening. And she made it very clear she's open to the idea of a tweak if it's affordable. What have you been picking up from Labour backbenchers in particular about what they want and just how big a deal this is for them?
Oh, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. If it wasn't a big deal before the local elections for some Labour MPs, it is now sort of urgent, if you like. One MP said the mood within the party ahead of the meeting that Keir Starmer had with the Parliamentary Labour Party and MPs was murderous and mutinous, is the way it was described to me, specifically on those cuts to pensioners on winter fuel payments. So I am not surprised that they are reconsidering, reviewing. We heard from the Labour leader in the Lords today, Angela Smith, say, well, I'm not commenting on any high-level discussions. So clearly there are high-level discussions going on. And she may even be part of those discussions. She wouldn't reveal on air, which was a shame. But it definitely is palpable. I think the strongest feeling we heard from Clive Lewis was expressed by him today when he said it really has brought it home. Our voters did not expect a Labour government to do this. It's not just about the policy. It speaks to values of the Labour Party that I adhere to and our supporters thought we held dear, and this flies in the face of it. And on the other side, what's been interesting is how difficult it is to cut.
Hello. Tuesday brought a lot of dry weather across the UK, but some heavy thundery downpours erupted in western parts during the afternoon. The BBC Weather app.
Here's the question.
This flies in the face of it. And on the other side, what's been interesting is how difficult it is to cut.
Hello. Choose the UK, but erupted in West on the BBC Weather app.
Here's the question.
We're asking you.
No wrong answers. BBC Our Future. We'll look out for an email to tell us what you think the BBC should be offering you.
Thelma Skiggers revealed to me they're in for a fascinating insight. And join me, John Wilson, for
Join me to hear from the